7:15 on a weekday morning. The kettle hums in a quiet kitchen somewhere in suburban Ohio. You lean over the steam and your lenses fog white. You take them off, pinch the hem of your shirt between two fingers, 2 passes, 3, and put them back on. 4 seconds. You will repeat that motion before your second coffee. Again at lunch. Again on the walk to the car. By bedtime, those lenses will have been wiped 6 or 7 times by the same hand with the same shirt. By the 18th month of owning a $400 pair of glasses, the surface holds a faint spider's web that catches the kitchen light. It is not a smudge. It is never coming off again. A protocol exists that prevents this. It is used in every optical assembly laboratory in the world. It costs less than $1 per year, takes 90 seconds, and uses 3 things: cold water, 1 drop of unscented dish soap, and your fingertips. It does not appear on the spray bottle the optometrist sold you. There is a reason for that, and the reason is not a conspiracy. This is the story of a coating you cannot see, an invention that was a German state secret in 1944, and a maintenance routine the modern eyewear market has no commercial reason to teach. 1. The November Patent. The 1st of November, 1935. Jena, in central Germany. Inside the research wing of Carl Zeiss, at that point, the most advanced optical manufacturer on Earth, a 35-year-old physicist named Alexander Smudged filed a patent. He had been hired the year before to lead the company's optical surface laboratory too. His patent described a method for vacuum depositing a microscopically thin layer of magnesium fluoride onto a glass lens. The result was extraordinary. Surface reflection dropped from roughly 4% to approximately 1%. Light transmission rose by something close to 50%. A lens treated this way carried a tiny red T stamped near the rim, T for transparent, and became the most coveted piece of optical hardware on either side of the war. The patent was treated as a state secret. The German government refused to publish it until November of 1944. Almost a decade later, and only after Allied intelligence confirmed that British and American laboratories had cracked the basic chemistry independently. By then, more than 100 of Smudged's vacuum chambers were running across German optical factories, coating periscope prisms, bomb sight optics, and the camera lenses of the Wehrmacht. Smudged himself never profited from it. Born in 1900 to a peasant family in Dubrovadi, on the eastern edge of Austria-Hungary, he had walked into Carl Zeiss with a chemistry doctorate from Göttingen and almost nothing else. After the war, Soviet authorities held him under restricted research conditions for nearly a decade. He emigrated to the United States in 1951, took a research position at MIT, and died in Auburn, Massachusetts in 1983. UNESCO declared the year 2000 in his honor. The coating he patented is, in nearly identical chemical form, the coating sitting on your glasses right now. 2. From Rayleigh to polycarbonate. The seed of the idea was older than Smudged by half a century. In 1886, the British physicist Lord Rayleigh, 3 years from his Nobel Prize, was examining a set of old, partly tarnished glass plates. He noticed something counterintuitive. The tarnished glass transmitted more light than the polished new glass beside it. The surface degradation, he realized, was forming a microscopically thin layer with a refractive index between glass and air, suppressing reflection by wave interference. The optics community filed the observation away as a curiosity for 18 years. In 1904, an English lens designer named Harold Dennis Taylor, working at the Cook Optical Company in York, translated the observation into a chemical recipe. He patented a method for deliberately etching the surface of a lens to mimic the natural tarnish Rayleigh had described. The process worked, but barely. Coatings were unstable, etching was labor-intensive, results inconsistent. the optics community treated Taylor's method as a laboratory toy for 30 more years. Smokula's leap was to abandon chemistry and use physics. He vapor deposited magnesium fluoride inside a vacuum chamber at a thickness equal to 1/4 of the wavelength of green light, about 145 nanometers, thinner than the membrane of a soap bubble. At that exact thickness, two reflected light beams, one off the top of the coating, one off the glass beneath it, arrive perfectly out of phase. They cancel each other by destructive interference. The reflection does not disappear because the light is absorbed. It disappears because the light, in effect, erases itself. Beautiful physics, also incredibly fragile. The coating survived in military service because nobody who handled those wartime lenses cleaned them with a paper napkin. By the 1970s, Smokula's single-layer coating had evolved into the T-star multilayer, alternating high and low refractive index oxides, reducing reflection below 0.5%. By the 1990s, the same physics had migrated onto lightweight polycarbonate. By 2010, more than 90% of all prescription eyewear sold in the United States carried some version of this coating. What did not migrate with the technology was the maintenance protocol. 3. The 4-layer sandwich on your face. The reason your glasses fail at 18 months is not that the lens is fragile. The reason is that the lens is a sandwich of 4 materials with violently different physical properties. And most people clean it as if it were a single piece of glass. The substrate is polycarbonate or a high-index plastic. Soft, flexible, with a coefficient of thermal expansion roughly 15 times higher than mineral glass. Bonded on top of the substrate is a scratch-resistant hard coat, applied by spin or dip. Above that sits the multi-layer anti-reflective stack, magnesium fluoride and metallic oxides, deposited atom by atom in a vacuum chamber, optically perfect and mechanically rigid. Crowning the structure is a hydrophobic topcoat, a fluoropolymer monolayer roughly a single molecule thick, designed to make water bead up and roll off. When you wipe a dry lens with a tissue or the corner of a shirt, 2 things happen simultaneously. First, the cellulose fibers in the paper, or the silica dust trapped invisibly in cotton fabric, act as a fine abrasive. They are harder than the hydrophobic topcoat. Each wipe scrubs away microscopic amounts of that topcoat. Within 3 or 4 months, water no longer beads on the lens. It streaks. That is the topcoat going. The second mechanism is heat. And heat is the real assassin. When hot tap water hits the lens, or the dashboard of a car parked in summer sun at 140 Fahrenheit, or the radiant air above a backyard grill, or a hairdryer pointed too close, the plastic substrate expands rapidly. The magnesium fluoride layer above it does not. It is mineral. It is rigid. It cracks the way dried mud cracks across a riverbed in August. Opticians call this crazing. It is permanent. No cleaning protocol on Earth will repair it. 4. The knowledge that never crossed the counter. For most of the last 50 years, the technicians who applied this coating in the laboratory knew exactly how to wash it. That knowledge never crossed the counter. If your grandfather wore glasses in the 1960s, the lenses on his face were almost certainly polished mineral glass. Uncoated, durable, scratch-resistant. He could wash them with anything, and he probably did. Dish soap, cold water, a soft cotton handkerchief padded across each lens until the droplets sheeted off. Nobody taught him this. He cleaned his glasses the way he cleaned a wine glass, because in his hands, they were the same kind of object. Somewhere between his generation and yours, the lenses changed. The protocol did not. The spray bottle replaced the sink, and the spray bottle came with a marketing budget. In Japan, where the cultural concept of matenai, the regret of squandering an object's inherent value, runs through ordinary household practice, the protocol has survived more or less intact. Walk into a small optometrist shop in Osaka, and you may be handed a bottle, but you will also be shown the sink. Rinse first. Soap with the fingertip. Rinse again. Shake the lens through a smooth column of falling water until the surface sheets dry. It is simply how a person who respects a piece of equipment treats it. 5. The economics of a sink. The protocol that works. Cold tap water, 1 drop of neutral pH dish soap, fingertip emulsification, a final rinse, a laminar shed of the water through a smooth column, costs about 6 cents per use. Across a year of daily cleaning, the entire material budget is less than a single bottle of optical spray. The American Optometric Association has, for at least 2 decades, recommended exactly this method on its public guidance pages. The advice has been sitting there in plain view the entire time. The reason it never reaches the average consumer is structural, not malicious. Cold water cannot be patented. A drop of dish soap is sold under the kitchen cleaning category, not the eyewear category. Fingertips ship for free. The $14 spray bottle at the optical retailer contains, in most cases, distilled water, a small amount of isopropyl alcohol, and a trace of non-ionic surfactant. It is not a worse cleaner than what comes out of the kitchen tap. It is also not a meaningfully better one. What it has is a label, a barcode, a SKU, and a wholesale margin that helps pay the rent on the storefront. There is no actor in the modern eyewear supply chain whose quarterly revenue depends on you knowing that dish soap works. No optical retailer can build a sustainable business around a 4-cent recommendation. No lens manufacturer can patent a public domain protocol. No marketing department will run a campaign telling people their kitchen sink is already the right tool. The protocol fell out of common knowledge not because anyone buried it, but because nothing in the market structure had any reason to keep teaching it. This is what market attention looks like. It is duller than a conspiracy, more banal than a cover-up, and considerably harder to defeat. 6. Where the protocol survived intact. The protocol survives, undiluted, in 3 places. 3 environments where the people doing the cleaning are also the people who pay for the consequences of getting it wrong. The first is the final inspection station at any large optical lens manufacturing line. Walk into a finishing room at Essilor, at Hoya, at Carl Zeiss Vision, and the same motion repeats thousands of times per shift. The technician rinses a finished lens under a column of cold deionized water, places 1 drop of mild surfactant on her fingertip, emulsifies for 10 seconds, rinses again, then draws the lens vertically through the falling stream. No cloth touches the AR surface until the lens drops into its envelope. The second is the dark room of any serious astronomer. The Schmidt corrector plates on amateur and professional reflecting telescopes carry the same magnesium fluoride anti-reflective coating that sits on your eyeglasses, applied to optical elements that can cost $10,000 to replace. The standard keening agent across the amateur astronomy community, published in Sky and Telescope, recommended on every serious telescope maker's forum, is a few drops of Kodak PhotoFlow 200. A non-ionic surfactant manufactured for film processing, diluted in deionized water. Cold rinse, fingertip motion, watershed, no microfiber, no spray, no dry rubbing. The third is the surgical instrument cleaning protocol used in most teaching hospitals for the optics on endoscopes and laparoscopes, places where contamination kills people and clarity is non-negotiable. Cold rinse, neutral detergent, manual gentle motion, final laminar shed. The same physics that protects a $400 pair of glasses protects a $40,000 surgical scope. The protocol works because the physics works. 7. The 90-second protocol. Take a pair of glasses to the kitchen sink. Turn the cold tap to a smooth, unbroken stream. Not splashing, not sputtering. Just a clean column of water, about as thick as a pencil. The technical name for this is laminar flow. Surface tension is going to do most of the work in a moment. Pass both lenses, front and back, under the stream for about 5 seconds. This is not the cleaning step. It flushes off the hard particulates, pollen grains, silica dust, dried skin flakes, environmental grit that have settled on the lens over the day. If this step is skipped and a cloth goes straight on, those particles are exactly what scratch the lens. Place 1 small drop of unscented, lotion-free liquid dish soap on a fingertip. Dawn Original Blue is the brand most often recommended by the American Optometric Association. But any neutral pH dishwashing liquid without added moisturizers or antibacterial agents will work. Avoid hand soaps. They almost always contain emollients that smear and never fully rinse. With the lens still wet, work the soap across both surfaces using only the pads of the fingers. No cloth, no sponge. The human fingertip carries something like 17,000 mechanoreceptors per square inch and will warn you instantly if grit remains on the lens. A cloth feels nothing, which is precisely why a cloth scratches lenses. 10 seconds per side. Extra attention to the nose pads and the back of the hinges. Those are oil traps. Rinse under the same cold stream until the water sheets cleanly off the lens without breaking into beaded droplets. If droplets persist, soap remains. Rinse longer. Then the step that replaces the cleaning cloth entirely. Hold the frame vertically, lenses parallel to the falling water. Slowly draw the glasses straight downward, so the lenses are the last part to leave the stream. The water clinging to the lens is pulled by surface tension into the falling column and carried away. Because the hydrophobic topcoat is still intact, the lens emerges almost dry, a thin, even film that evaporates in seconds. If the frame is wet, blot it with a clean, lint-free cloth. The lens stays untouched. Total time at the sink, 90 seconds. Total cost, roughly 6 cents.
Eight, the honest limits. This protocol will not save lenses that are already crazed. Once the AR coating has cracked from heat exposure, there is no field repairable fix. The lens must be recoated by a lab or replaced. It will not work as cleanly if the hydrophobic topcoat has already been scrubbed off by years of dry wiping. If water beads strangely on the lens, running in streaks rather than sheeting off, the topcoat is gone. The cleaning itself still works. A clean microfiber will be needed to blot the lens dry afterward. The protocol does not solve the problem of a dirty microfiber. A cloth carried in a pocket for 2 weeks is a loaded weapon. If a cloth is used at all, it should be washed every 14 days in detergent without fabric softener. Softeners coat the fibers in wax and turn the cloth into a smearing tool. And the protocol will not prevent anyone from sitting on their own glasses. The market still has a perfectly valid commercial interest in selling a good hard case. Closing tomorrow morning, when the kettle hums and the lenses fog white over a cup of coffee. Before the hand reaches for the shirt hem out of pure habit, walk to the sink instead. Cold water, 1 drop, fingertips, 90 seconds. Then return to the comments under this video. Lens age, coating type, years of dry wiping before, what the surface looks like after. The comments section here is about to become something the eyewear industry has no commercial reason to assemble. A field data archive built by the people who actually wear the glasses, accumulating across years, free to read, owned by no one. Smudged coating was a German state secret in 1944. 91 years later, it sits on the face of nearly every adult in this room, and the only thing it costs to maintain is a drop of soap, a minute at the sink, and a moment of attention to what is actually under the lens.